when I came to the States, I just realized how good people have it here. And, I think my biggest culture shock was going into a supermarket or even a hobby store like Michael's, so Hobby Lobby, because everybody in my country, Ukraine or Russia or any other former Republic of USSR, you just do things. You're into crafts, or you're into dancing, you're into music school. I graduated music school. I was singing in a chorus. I sang in a girls band. I did ballroom dancing. So I was always busy.
Hello, everyone. I am your host, Lion, and I am honored that you are joining us. In this episode, I am joined by the amazing Elena, who is an immigrant just like me. Join us as we learn from Elena what it was like growing up in the Donbas region of Ukraine under communism, the hardships of when communism fell, as well as the hardships Elena faced when coming to the US. Join us as we learn how Elena, through all of the struggles, found a way to maintain her grace and persevere to find courage to shine and allow people around her to build her into the strong and independent, successful woman she is today. Thank you. Thank you so much for making the time to join. I really appreciate it.
Of course, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. So, if it's okay with you, I would like to get started with a short introduction before we go into our episode. So with that, my name is Lion, or Farhizi, Farhan, as some of you know, and I am a digital nomad and an immigrant to this great nation. And some of you have heard me say why immigrants are our greatest treasure in this country, and today's episode aims to focus on that. One thing that is unique or amongst all immigrants that come to this country is the conscious decision we make to step out of our comfort zone and come to this country that in a lot of cases is very different from where we were, and change ourselves to adapt as well as attempt to thrive. Some of us are more privileged than others, but bottom line, what unites us all is this decision to step out of our comfort zone. And that struggle lends itself to so much growth in us that is a source of power. And I believe we are a great nation as the United States because of the power of our immigrants. And I believe that we have an opportunity to do more to cherish our immigrants. And that is why I am here with Elena today to focus on her story and the power that she derived from her upbringing. Before I turn over to Elena, I just want to take a quick minute to introduce her. So today, Elena is a real estate agent in Palm Beach County, in South Florida. She's also a senior leader at her church, and she's an amazing communicator. When she came to the U.S., she was 18 and in love, and she left the Ukraine not wanting to leave. She did not speak a single word of English, and she faced a lot of struggles gaining social acceptance from other women, from community, and she felt as though she had come to a different planet. And today you will see how far Elena has come. So with that, Elena, is there anything that you would like to add to the introduction.
Well, thank you so much, Lan. Really appreciate it. It was such a great introduction, and I think you covered it all. I think America is the greatest country in the world still, despite of what everybody says or some people say and how they condemn the country. I'm completely opposite of it. I'm so grateful and humbled that I was given an opportunity to come here and thrive and grow and uh, unfold the opportunities that presented themselves and fold some in as well. Didn't take some, but make my own decisions and have that freedom. And I think that's the difference between America and many, many other countries in the world where people are feeling like they're in shackles and chains, whether they know it or not, right? Because, well, you and I were talking about it, like when you grow up, if you don't have anything to compare to, you really don't know what it's like on the other side. But once you come to this country and you see the difference that it makes in having freedom and taking opportunities and taking risks, it just completely shifts your mind change, your mindset. And that's exactly what happened to me. Just a little bit of the background. When I was growing up, I was growing up in communism. It was, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and Soviet Union broke up in 1990s. So for the most of my life, I lived in communism regime, and it's kind of funny because I mentioned to you I was a pretty happy kid, right? Of course, had my moments and tantrums, but I was a happy kid. We had food on the table. I wasn't wearing one set of clothing for the entire week and changed my clothes every day. But I also had friends that were from richer families. I also had friends that were from poorer family. We were like middle class. We didn't have a lot, but we certainly did not experience poverty in the full sense of that word. But when I came to the States, I just realized how good people have it here. And, I think my biggest culture shock was going into a supermarket or even a hobby store like Michael's or Hobby Lobby, because everybody in my country, Ukraine or Russia or any other former Republic of USSR, you just do things. You're into crafts or you're into dancing, you're into music school. I graduated music school. I was singing in a chorus. I sang in a girls band. I did ballroom dancing. So I was always busy. I never had time to experiment with drugs or alcohol. I was a good teenager. I was a good kid, but my parents kept me very, very busy. And, just to contrast other countries with America, I think I mentioned to you before, I never realized, but I really never experienced bullying in the full sense of that word. Like we had to wear uniform, right? Well, it's boring because you wear the same thing for 12 years, like same colors, same set of uniform, but that kind of eliminated bullying because everybody was the same. Everybody, like nobody judged you based on what you're wearing. Are you wearing a Gucci skirt or Chanel shoes or this and that? And I think in America, that's, one of the very few negative things that when kids go to school, that gives other kids an opportunity to bully them because they see whether you are coming from the rich family or middle class family or things like that. As far as abundance of everything, it's just there is no comparison. And Ukraine was not a third world country, but I remember times where we had to go to a store with they're not food stamps, but let's call them food stamps that the government would give us because we had shortage of bread or milk or what have you, like essential food items, and when harvest wasn't there or there was some sort of abruption in the chain supply, they would give us these stamps, and you would have to go to the store and get a loaf of bread and make sure, regardless of whether it's a family of two or family of seven, you know that that's it. That's all you get for the entire week. And you have to be very smart with how you eat, and, you can't invite your friends. I remember one time my friend came in from school with me, and my grandmother was preparing dinner, and of course we fed her. And then when she left, my grandmother, gave me a lecture not to do it again, not because we were very kind and inviting family, like we always took everybody in, especially animals, but people too. And she just told me that, we really don't have means to feed anybody else. Not your friend is always welcome here, but please don't bring her dinner time. And it came, it like when I think back now, it causes me pain, because I know my grandma, she was the kindest, sweetest person in the world. She lived her life for us, for everybody else, not for herself. And for her to say, hey, don't invite this person here, it wasn't because she was a mean person or she didn't want to be a great host, but we literally didn't have enough food for the rest of the week. And that kind of, stuck with me, because it would never, happen here. Well, I shouldn't say never, but I'm saying you don't see it in the United States. Like everybody can go to the store and buy, you can go to KFC or McDonald's if you can go to Whole Foods and buy organic filet mignon, right? So there are always means to feed your family, and people are just so helpful here as well. And
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, and I think that is such a powerful moment for you to share that, and a wonderful point about, despite your grandmother being so generous and you knowing her heart, how difficult it must have been for her to say that, and for that to portray how difficult times were. Because you're absolutely right. Even though we have a lot of people in this country who still struggle with hunger, we know that for the most part, they are a minority, and, as much as we need to sort of take care of them, we are in a position where a lot of our U.S. people here don't have to make those kinds of decisions. And I think that, I'm so glad that you brought that point up about your grandmother, because I wanted to ask you, your grandmother was a central point in your life. And, I know that you shared how part of your life was easier because of the sacrifices of your grandmother. Yes. And where she worked and how, so could you shed a little bit more light to tell us what are some of the ways in which your grandmother created this environment that was more blessed, more generous than some of your peers?
Absolutely, Lion. So women in my family always were providers. Excuse me. So my parents did get divorced when I was about 9 years old, and my father passed away a couple of years ago. But he was in Ukraine. He did not migrate to the United States, but he was not really present even when they were married. But it's not about my father. There was it's just a typical stereotype of an alcoholic, but that's, I've had to go through a lot of forgiveness and soul searching for that. And we made amends. And before he passed, I did talk to him, and it was just a blessing. Forgiveness is really something that can lift you up and just change your soul and life. But It's not about him, it's about women in my family. So my mom and my grandmother were always providers. My grandma, when my mom was younger and she didn't work, she was taking care of me and my brother for a couple of years. My grandmother was the source of income because my father didn't really have a good job and he couldn't hold on to a job. So they were kind of forced to take that role and make sure that we were provided for and had food on the table and so forth. So my grandma, she was in the food industry. Like she started cooking for soldiers during the World War II when she was 15 years old, and she kind of stuck with it for the rest of her life. She was an amazing, incredible cook. She could make something out of air somehow, but she also ran a restaurant in a movie theater. So it was like a really major movie theater in my city, Donetsk, and she ran a big restaurant there. So in order to provide for her family, she would actually steal. I mean, I'm just gonna say it. She would steal food and bring it to her home to feed her grandkids and her daughter, because otherwise you just can't buy anything. There was a deficit of everything. And, I really hope that it will appeal to some people that bash America all the time, because you really have to live in a different regime. Capitalism, communism, socialism, every regime has its own, pluses and minuses, but capitalism, when you own something, when it's yours and you're in charge of it, there is a lot more chances that you will thrive, your family will thrive, the country will thrive. Where with communism, you own nothing. You are a slave. You don't have the shackles. You do, but not physical shackles, right? But you're a slave to a government. And you can't, the salaries that they were paying, they were not enough to even buy food for a month. So I really don't know how other families survived. You always, all families live together. There was no such thing like, oh, my mother-in-law is living in another place, or my grandmother is living in another place. Like, it was a 2-bedroom condo, 3-bedroom condo, sometimes 1-bedroom condo. It's you and your mom and your dad and your brother and your sister and your grandmother and your grandfather. It's like 6 or 7 or 8 people in that small space. And nobody complained because we didn't know any other way, right? So my grandmother would take whatever she could and bring to home. That's how we always had food on the table. My mom had a really good job and she got it on her own. She was like in a very man-oriented industry, hospitality industry, but she ran a big hotel in the city and made a lot of friends. So my mom obviously couldn't take the food, but she had a lot of great connections that helped us a great time. But there were times just so people don't take it for granted and what we have, because you and I were talking about it. My shock when I was going to a supermarket and just seeing everything, like you have 10 different types of milk. Like, what? There is one milk. I only know one milk. It's the whole milk. You buy one bottle and that's it. There's fat-free and oat milk and almond milk and reduced fat and whole. I was absolutely blown away. I was literally walking around the Publix or grocery store, and my mind couldn't grasp the abundance of it. And I'm like, I don't know what to buy because I just don't know what this is. So it took a little time to shift my mentality to, okay, this is my life now, right? I can buy that. It's actually available. But it also made me so sad, because it's like, why this abundance is not everywhere? Like, that's the way, if people live like this here, why it's not existent in Ukraine or, any other part of the world where people are really struggling? and they're not making enough money to buy nice things or even food, even essentials. Um, and I remember we when Soviet Union broke up in 1990, and of course there were 15 republics in USSR, and every republic wanted to become independent, right? Because we're all like freedom, yay! But what does freedom entail? Um, so what it entailed for Ukraine was a very sad picture because the USSR, Russia was the main hub for every republic, except for three Baltic republics like Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, the northern republics of former USSR. They always had their own economy, own language. They're very close to Finland and like Europe, so they always had kind of their own world. But the remaining 12 republics were heavily dependent on Russia, and Russia was the main hub for politics and economics. So Russia was that heart, and everything else was the vein. So remember when Soviet Union broke up and Ukraine became an independent country, it was a very sad picture because a few months after that, the government decided that they want to switch from ruble to another currency. I think at that time it was grivna or coupon or something like that. Let's just say grivna. So overnight, without any heads up, they just came up with this monetary reform. And I remember one morning I woke up and my grandmother was crying, and I asked her why she was crying, and she said, we lost all our money. The little that we had in the savings account in the bank, she said, we have very, very little money, because what that conversion conversion of currency did was to wipe all the savings that people had. So rich got richer, poor got poorer. At that point, I've never, probably from 1992 up until I left in 1996, I never saw poverty in the way that I saw it then in those few years. You would see retired people, people that couldn't get a job anymore. They lost everything. They were begging on streets. You would walk on the street and there would be lines of homeless people, older people or children, that are being taught to go and ask for money because parents don't have money. And it just always broke my heart. And I'm like, how is that fair that the government can just take control and destroy lives of people that went through a war? But some of them went through 2 wars, and they ended up with nothing. It's like you laying your life down for what? And it just, that injustice really, really affected me.
Yeah.
So,
if I may, thank you so much for sharing that. And, you've been so generous in talking about the struggles in that very tough time that you saw of others. I would like to spend a little bit of time talking about, in some ways, how, something that we take for granted was a very much a personal struggle for you. So I'd love to hear the story of your mom and how you shared a pair of boots with her, right?
Yeah.
And you were very much a social butterfly. And if you could give us a little bit of background and go into that story, I think it's a wonderful, powerful story, to really understand.
Thank you so much for remembering that, Lion. Yes, I hold that story dear to my heart. So my mom is my best friend. We became really, really close when we came here. She held my hand, and like you mentioned, I didn't speak any English, and she was in the US for 2 years prior to me and my brother coming here, which was a blessing. But because we came with the documents, we didn't have to go through, illegal hurdles or trying to get a green card. We already came with the documents, and that's because of my mom and her sacrifices, great sacrifices. So my mom and I are super, super close. She's my best friend. I have a blast with her every time. She's a funny lady. Everybody loves her, loves her. And, so she was a very, I wasn't close with her when I was growing up just because she was not there. She worked 24/7, and I think I shared before that no, a car is a luxury in my country, or used to be a luxury. I'm sure it's still the same way, but we had a car when my parents got divorced. My mom just gave it to my father because she just wanted to be done, and she didn't really drive, but she would walk to work every day. And I want to say it was about probably good 12 miles. So she would walk to work every day, rain or shine, minus 20 degrees, cold, it doesn't matter. She would walk, and I would have to walk to school. My college was pretty far as well, so I would walk a lot. But she just worked a lot. We didn't see her much, and when she was home, she was absolutely exhausted. So she just wanted to read her newspaper and be left alone, talk for 5 minutes and be done. And she was very kind to us, but we just didn't spend a lot of time together because of a necessity of provision for her family. And in winter time, obviously Ukraine is like, think Siberia, right? It's not too far off. Very, very, very cold winters. You walk out and literally 3 minutes, you can't feel your nose. You have running nose. You don't even know because it's just so cold. You can't feel your fingers, your toes. And I remember one time I was invited to go out with friends. I don't remember if it was birthday party or whatever. It was winter time. It was really, really cold. But and my mom actually had to go to either an event, something to do with work as well. We had one pair of boots that were like fancy boots that you wouldn't just wear it every day. So they had a little heel. They were really cute. And they were warm. That was the only pair of warm, like dressy boots that we had. And I remember, I was telling her that, okay, I'm going out with so and so, and I'm wearing the boots, and so she's like, no, you're not, because I have a work function, and that's more important. So we got into an argument, and of course, I lost because I was like 12 or whatever I was, and maybe a little bit older, maybe 14. But, it kind of stuck with me as well because it took me time. I was very, very angry with my mom at the time because, of course I'm more important. I mean, come on. And it took me time to process and realize that it wasn't because she didn't want to give me a pair of shoes, but she just needed it more than I did. And it was really cold and I didn't have anything to wear. So I didn't go. And, I had a pair of boots that I wore every day, but they were pretty ugly. So, and things like that, like we shared clothes, a lot of clothes. My mom was obviously a little bit big. Thank goodness we had the same shoe size. But when I was growing up, of course, I was much smaller than my mom. And I remember like she had this nice skirt that was custom made. And when I was going out, I could only wear it in winter time because it was so big that I would actually pull it up, and I put a belt. So it would look like a short skirt, like knee length skirt. And I would put like a, big sweater over it. So it looked cute, but the skirt was like 10 sizes bigger than me because, that's all we had. My dream,
Wow.
my dream was to get a pair of jeans when I was growing up, when I was, kind of rolling into my teenage years. As you probably know, like jeans were it. Nobody had jeans. It's like if you had a pair of jeans, you were the coolest. Like everybody wanted to hang out with you. Like you were the coolest kid on the block. And I just wanted a pair of jeans for my 15th birthday. And my dad promised me that pair of jeans. And for months, I think I was having dreams with with those jeans. And he didn't follow through, which hurt me. But my mom actually went ahead and got me that pair of jeans that I wore for years and years, and I loved them so much. And I was so proud of them, and I was just so thankful because I knew we really didn't have money to spend on, lavish pair of jeans, but she did because she knew how much I wanted them and how much it meant to me. But especially because the promise that was made was not fulfilled. And I think that hurt me more than anything else. That's why I never make promises that I can't keep, because I grew up with a lot of promises that were not kept. But then she fulfilled it. She understood how important it was for my development and just trust to have that. And I was just very, very grateful that she did that. Um, so
Yeah.
my mom is an amazing, amazing woman that sacrificed beyond what anyone can imagine
Yeah.
for us. Yeah.
As all mothers in some shape or form, right? So with that, we're around the halfway mark of our conversation, and I want to honor, and like protect the time to talk about, your life in the U.S. But before we do, I wanted to spend just a couple of minutes hearing from you a little bit more about the challenges that you face in not wanting to leave Ukraine, right? I know, you were in love, you were 18, you very much saw your life in Ukraine, and it was a very hard decision, and in some respects, not up to you to make that decision. So can you shed a little bit of light on the fears that you faced, right? What were some of the dark fears that you faced that made the prospect of leaving everything that you knew for something that you knew practically nothing about? Talk to us about those fears.
Absolutely, Lion. So yes, it's free. I think it's always hard to move, right? It's very hard to move to a different city or even a different building. But for me, that move was equivalent to moving to another planet because I didn't speak the language. I learned French in high school. I started learning English in college, but our teacher wouldn't show up sometimes. Like it was serious. So I came here with a very, very, very little, base of English vocabulary of language. I really didn't speak the language. So I, what I did, I had a goal. I said, I really can't not communicate with people. And every time somebody was trying to ask me something or say something, I would always pull my mom, like, Mom, what are they saying? And even if I understood, I was afraid to speak because it's just that fear. Oh, what if I say it wrong? What if they laugh at me? It's that ego and pride thing. So my goal was to learn the language as quickly as possible. And I came here in the beginning of February of 1996. My birthday was in the end of March. So I told myself, you know what? My goal is to get a driver license by the time I turn 19 in a month and a half, or almost 2 months. So every day, because I have nothing else to do really, every day I would read that driver license book up and down, back and forth. I would write the words. I would write every word from that book because I didn't know 98% of them. So I would write every word. And, they say when you write, it kind of sinks into your memory better. And that's really true. So I would write every word. And my goal was to learn at least 10 to 20 words before I went to bed every day. And that's, my friend, how I learned English, by reading the driver license book. When they tell you, like, you can go to another country, watch TV, and learn the language, you're either genius or you're a liar. There is no other way. There is no way you can learn any language from watching TV. You can watch it for 10 years. I don't care. You can maybe pick up some words, or maybe like kind of get an idea what they're talking about from body language or their, um, actions, but you cannot learn how to speak the language or understand it deeply by watching TV. So that was, my role. I just read the driver license book, and I was actually more scared to take driver license exam, like driving exam, because I never drove a car before. Um, and a couple of times that I drove my mom's car, she was praying for her dear life. So that was more difficult for me than passing the textbook exam. And I did. I had my license by the time I was 19, a couple of days before my birthday. So it was a huge accomplishment for me. Um, or at least I thought it was, just because I didn't know the language, and I was very scared to speak, because it's always that fear that people will laugh at you. And then I quickly discovered that, Americans were very receptive and very gracious in listening or trying to help you. And that built my confidence, because I did have a couple of people. I got a job at a car dealership, and I never had an issue. Everybody was very gracious. But I do remember one woman just giving me this evil look, and she's like, I can't understand anything you're saying. Get me somebody else. And that hurt me, But people that I worked for stood up and protected me and told her where to go. But I, now it's like, you don't understand me, fine. Like I'll say it slower, or I'll say it in other words. So it doesn't faze me. Like you can't break me by saying that my language is not great or I have an accent. So I'm stuck with it. It's very charming. What do you want?
Yeah.
But it was really hard. It was like moving to another planet, different mentality. And I think I shared with you before that the cultural difference is just insane, because in my country, when I was growing up, if you don't talk to strangers, you just don't talk to strangers. You don't look at strangers. You don't smile at them. So if you're walking around and if you just happen to tell somebody, look at them and say, how you doing? Like they think that you're crazy, like that you have schizophrenia or you're a prostitute and you want something from them. It's like that. It used to be, I don't know about now, but it used to be that bad. It's very, I don't want to say cold. It's not cold culture, because people are very, very warm, and they'll take you in and they'll feed you. They'll give the shirt of their shoulder to you, even if they don't know if they trust you, but you have to get into that circle of trust. So it's not a cold culture. It's just very reserved culture. You like, you have your friends, you have your family. You don't just talk to strangers and, let everybody in and then get hurt. But I was, I was pretty happy at the time. I was going to college because I graduated high school when I was 16, and I went to college, so I already had 2.5 years of college behind my back by the time I moved to the States. And I had a boyfriend, I was singing in a band. He sang in the band as well. And, that's how I met him. And we were just madly in love, or I thought we were. And before I left, he gave me, a little, ring, engagement ring, and I wore it on my necklace for a while. But, I really kind of secretly rebelled against my mom, because she was the reason me and my brother ended up in the States. And she sacrificed so much. She really did, for us to be here. So she came to the States in 94. Took her about 2 years. She met a wonderful man who was much older than her, but he was great. He was great to our family, and we loved him dearly. But she got married, and my brother and I came to the States almost 2 years later. That's how long it takes. And I told my mom, I'm like, I really appreciate the opportunity. I know how much you've sacrificed, and it's a great country, and I'm very intrigued, but I'm like, maybe I can travel between the States and Ukraine because I love my boyfriend and we're gonna get married. And the wisdom of the elders, right? My mom has never gave me an ultimatum except for two times in my life. And at the time I didn't understand, but she was right. And I'm glad that she gave me those ultimatums when she did and the way she did it. And she pretty much told me that, look, if you are not going to come, because I told her straight up, I'm like, I'm not going. I'm just not going to go. And she said, okay, if you're going to marry this guy and you're not going to come with me just to see, I just want you to see, I promise you I will not talk to you ever again. We're done. And that was beyond my understanding because my family is very tight and we are like lions. We will protect each other. We are very, very tight, very close. And when she said that, it really, pierced me. On one hand, I wanted to say, well, it's my life. I'm 18 now. I can do whatever I want. But on the other hand, I think my spirit saying like, listen to her, like listen to her because you don't know what you've given up. Right. So it's like, if you don't experience something, then how can you judge whether you like it or not, or whether it's a best or worst decision for you? So it was really hard, but I left. I was a little rebellious at the time. When I came here, all I was talking about is how I'm going to go back to Ukraine in 6 months and marry my boyfriend and this and that. And then as I started opening my eyes and looking at the opportunities and the country and the freedom that I never had, I realized that I never want to go back. And it would be very foolish of me to go and give up this life. And I was a kid, when you're 18, you think you know everything, but you're a kid. So I'm very grateful for my mom to to give me that ultimatum and opening my eyes. And obviously, I shared it was really hard from the social standpoint because I had amazing friends, a lot of girl friends that I was always like a girly girl, very close, had very close friends. And when I came here, I just got rejected by women. I don't know why, but I couldn't find anybody my age that would want to be my friend. They already had their circle of friends. It was very cliquish. I tried and it just never, panned out until I was in my early 20s. Then I started meeting really gracious and awesome and beautiful women that I'm friends with to this day. So I guess I was just meeting the wrong people, right? But I had friends. I mean, I always, I met people through work, and I was always social and wanted to be around people. But it was very difficult, just like I'm sure for everybody that moved to this country. It is like, especially without knowing the language, overcoming that fear took some time. I would say that I probably got rid of that fear in about 6 months, but it started phasing away in about 3 months when I started, being more confident. And thank goodness and thank God that people that were around me were very encouraging and very supportive and gracious to, I can't even tell you how many words I messed up, and everybody was very gracious. To this day, my friends sometimes, correct me. I've always said for years, I think I learned about 2 years ago that it's not two pieces in a pie, it's two peas in a pod. So for about 20 years, I was saying two pieces in a pie because it makes sense. It's like one pie, same pieces, right? So I would always say two pieces in a pie until my husband
I think we lost. There you go.
pieces.
There you go. Sorry, we lost you for a
You got me
second,
back.
but go ahead. Yeah. Mhm.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Um,
It's okay.
so yeah, and for 20
Yeah.
years I was saying two pieces in a pie, and apparently it's not. But I kind of like, so all my friends now, they're like, we love it. Like it actually makes more sense. So we're gonna say two pieces in a pie. Or I literally just learned 2 weeks ago that it's not
Mhm.
um, blessing in the blessing in the sky, but it's a blessing in disguise. Like, really? I'm like, I like blessing in the sky better because it just makes more sense. But it's like you learn every day, and I still mess up, and I but I have no problem. It what makes me me, and people
Mhm.
understand, or hopefully they do. And if they laugh behind my back, that's fine too. I
Mhm.
laugh at myself all the time.
You project this image of confidence today, which is amazing and powerful, and like one of the big reasons why I was so drawn to you. But if you feel comfortable, could you talk about some of that loneliness that you grappled with when these girls didn't want to be your friend, and some of those dark points, and what was there for you? Um, I think a lot of us go through that, and hearing it from you,
Absolutely, Lion. So I think
yeah,
it's struggles that a lot of women go to, and I'm sure men as well. One thing that I learned in life, probably the most valuable thing, is that you cannot, you can only control yourself and how you feel. You cannot control what other people feel or do to you or to themselves. And you have a choice to either walk away and try something different or look for something elsewhere, because you can't expect different results if you keep on doing the same thing, right? Or you can get stuck there and feel sorry for yourself, and try to bow down, and still try to knock on the doors that are not going to open. So when I was getting rejected by women, um, friendships, my friendship was being rejected, I would just go elsewhere. Like, I never dwelled over it, because even as young as I was, I understood that, look, like, it's not me, right? If they don't want to be my friend, I'm not gonna change or tailor to their needs what they need. And listen, there were girls sometimes, they would ask me if, if I wanted to, like, go out, hang out with them, but I didn't want to, because I knew there were drugs or alcohol, or men they were hanging out with were not exactly what I felt would be the appropriate, situation to be in. So I always had that ability to, grieve. Of course, I was sad. And of course, the initial reaction, what is wrong with me? Like, why don't they want to, and my mom was somebody would say, well, maybe they feel insecure. And I'm like, why? Like, I never consider myself, like, I know what I am. I know, I'm not the worst looking woman in the world, but I don't think I'm Angelina Jolie, like, to me, because I always had girlfriends that were drop dead gorgeous. In Ukraine, like, women are so beautiful. So all my friends were prettier than me. So I never had any issues. Like, what do you mean you don't feel secure next to me? Like, what are you talking about? And as a matter of fact, I did have a friend in the United States. We became super close, super, super close. And she was drop dead gorgeous. I mean, that woman, she is like Linda Evangelista. I mean, she's gorgeous, beautiful. And you know what? She was so insecure. She was so, so insecure. And hanging out with me made her feel more secure, because I wasn't as pretty. But then just a few times when I got more attention from men, she would put me down in a very passive aggressive way, in front of people. And I kind of had a check in my spirit when I was in that friendship. I kind of had a check in my spirit, like something is not right. Like, why is she saying, very subtle things? I'm like, why is she saying that? She would say like, oh, well, he was trying to go on a date with me, but I wasn't interested, so he asked you for a number. And I'm like, hmm. you know so so maybe it was a blessing that women that didn't want to be my friends were not my friends, but it did affect me and it did hurt me at the time. But I never took it like, oh, it's me, it's something is wrong with me. I would, of course, look at myself and say, okay, did I say something to offend that person? Did I do something? I have no problem apologizing. One thing I'm good at, I might blow up, I might, say something hurtful, but I will always come back and say, I'm really sorry. If it's my fault, like, please forgive me. I need your forgiveness. I need to cleanse myself from that. But it just, rejection, I think every person that comes to the States, every immigrant faces some sort of rejection in one way or the other. You don't have to be immigrant to, I think it's just a life thing. Life gets in the way and people might reject you or accept you, but what are you going to do with that? That's a different story. I was always very, comfortable with myself. I know who I am. I know beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, right? I will never be the best looking person in the world. I will never be the worst looking person in the world. I'm not for everybody, but I'm for somebody. That unfortunately, some women don't take rejection really well. And it turns out into something toxic for themselves, because if you boiling yourself in and why, what is wrong with me? Maybe if I'll do plastic surgery, maybe I will not get rejected, or maybe if I'll get, go and get a $2,000 pair of shoes, maybe then I will not be rejected. That doesn't come from the shoes. It doesn't come from your, how pretty you are. It comes from here, and who you surround yourself with, right? Because that is so important. People can either inject that toxicity into you if you let them, or you can say no, not today, not tomorrow, and I'm gonna live the way I know how to live, and I'm not gonna let anything toxic to touch me, and I can't change you. So if this is not the right fit, we're not going to talk anymore.
And that's such a good point, Elena. It brings us to our last question, where, you experienced rejection in these ways, and you had sort of these initial instances that built your confidence. What was really the turning point for you as an immigrant? Maybe people that came into your lives who built you up inadvertently, but that turning point where you started to be your own source of confidence, to say, despite the rejections, I believe in myself and the things that I want to go after, my visions that I have of my dreams, and going after them despite the barriers or the rejections.
That's a great question, Lion. I think there were a lot of points that kept on building my confidence, and you never feel that glass, because you can build your confidence, you can be the most confident person in the world, and then somebody that you trust or love backstabs you, and your confidence goes down the drain. So I think it's important to surround yourself with people that you trust wholeheartedly, that they have your back and will go through the fire for you. And I think there were a lot of great turning points for me, to be honest with you, when, even at my first job, I was a greeter at a really well-known car dealership, and I had a very, broken English, and they were gracious enough to hire me. And of course, they were all men. There was like one woman on a team, and they were all men, and they were very kind to me, and not in a, dirty sexual way. They were just really kind people to me. And they always, built my confidence when I remember we had to announce when somebody came to a service line, we had to announce for a service advisor to come and meet the customer, and it had to be done over the speakerphone so the entire dealership hears it. And I just couldn't do it. That's one thing I could not do it. And I would always go to every service advisor like, hey, can you page John for me? And they were so busy, like they probably wanted to like rip my throat, but they're like, okay. So they helped me. And one day I just picked up the phone and I did it. Like they built my confidence. They didn't tell me, well, you do it, or I'm not going to do it, or like if you can't do it, quit your job. Like nothing like that. And I think if somebody did tell me quit your job, maybe I would have, because it would rip my heart apart. But I truly believe that, God sent angels as people in my life, because it's funny, like looking back at my life at some times where that one person came in for a season. It's just for a season, wasn't forever. And some came forever that are friends with me to this day, and I love them dearly, like a family. But there is, one person came for a season exactly and said or did exactly what I needed to turn around and say, okay, well, I didn't see it that way, but thank you, because now I feel that healing, that runs through me. And I was married before. I have a wonderful, wonderful husband, just a blessing in the sky for me. But I was married before in my 20s, and it was a really, really rocky relationship. And we were young. And when we got divorced finally, I remember laying down. It was probably one of the lowest points of my life, because I felt, at that time, I felt like even though I was making my own money and I probably made more than him at the time, but that old school mentality, like, wow, the man is a provider. And what if I stop making, because, real estate is commission. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow. And I always had that mentality, like, what am I going to do without, him? Because we were together for 7 years and he never paid my bills. This is the interesting part. This is how your mind works. He never paid my bills. He bought me presents. He was a very generous man, but it was up and down. He would make money, spend it on their friends, not on his wife. But then, he would have no money. So it was always a struggle. But when we got divorced, I really felt like I'm not good enough to do it on my own. And I remember laying in my bed, even though I had my own condo, I had my own car, like I was good, but in my mind, because of the just mental games, and in my mind, I wasn't worthy. And I remember I was laying in bed, and I was just staring in the dark, and I said, God, if you're here, if you're there, like guide me, like take this cup from me, because I don't know how to live my life. Like I felt older, I felt broken, I felt broke, I felt like empty. I felt like I was so alone, and it's never the truth. Like he's always there. God is always there for us. But that's how I felt when I was, 30 years old, and I was just so empty. And I said, God, if you're there, you help, like you handle it. Like I release everything to you. I don't want it. I don't know how to do it. Like I tried, it's not working. And believe it or not, literally a week, maybe 2 weeks later, everything changed. Everything changed for me. So I made that year, I made the most money I've ever made in my life. I had new friends. I just felt elevated. and I felt different. I felt like I was reborn. And yes, there were people that came into my life where I felt so down or not worthy or whatever it had to be, and sometimes it was a very short period of time that I talked to them. And sometimes it turned into a friendship or something more. But we're not meant to be alone, and even when we feel lonely, we're not alone. So I hope that will speak to somebody that is listening, that if you feel lonely, you are not alone. For me, like, my faith is my foundation and my ground, our church, the healing that we experience and people experience with us, and my husband. And by the way, I've waited for my husband, for the right man, for 40 years. So don't lose faith, you single people out there. But I just hope people will have more like sense of discernment when to let toxicity in. And it can come from other people, it can come from a job, it can come from a family even. And that's the worst one, because you can't cut your family, right? Or it's very hard to cut your family off. Expose yourself to people that lift you up and encourage you and edify you, because that's the most important thing in life.
Wow, what a wonderful note to sort of culminate today's conversation. And Elena, I wanted to, before concluding, sort of just say one thing to kind of bring everything full circle. Today's conversation started with this desire that we both shared to uplift the place of immigrants in this country, but also for those Americans who were born here and don't realize how lucky we are in this country. And both of us agree we have a lot of issues that we grapple with, but despite that, from us immigrants who lived in many other places, we're here because of, what this country represents and hasn't let us down so far. I want to challenge the audience to say, okay, some of us have traveled outside the U.S., but I would encourage you to travel outside the U.S. not as a tourist, but travel like a local and set the intention to learn from the people who live there, both the good and the bad, as a exercise of self-love. Self-love so that you have more perspective on how other people in other places live. So that can be an exercise in gratitude so that you yourself see, oh wow, these are some of the things that are different, and these are some of the things that I would be missing out on. And the things that I'd be missing out are things, wow, that I realize are important to me. And that will be a source of gratitude and of renewal, because ultimately, sort of the apathy that we feel because of the things that are wrong in our system cause us to not come together to solve those issues. But coming from a place of gratitude, of realizing, wow, look how amazing our country is in a lot of ways, will renew our spirits to say, you know what? We're amazing and we can be more amazing. So now, with this renewed spirit, let me go address some of our issues.
Yeah.
That is my sincerest hope and desire. And with that, Elena, thank you so much for making the time, for casting your bright light on us, and to you, our audience, thank you so much for making the time out of your busy lives to be here to learn from Elena. And with that, I want to say thank you, love, and light.
Thank you so much, Stein. It was such a pleasure seeing you, and blessings, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Get Out of Your Comfort Zone series. I hope it moved you and inspired you if you are feeling stuck with something in your life. If you would like to further connect with our guest, please see their contact in the description. Please consider taking a moment to rate this podcast. Please also consider showing us some love on your Instagram story. You can find our info in the episode description. Until the next episode, I wish you infinite love and light. Thank you so much for tuning in.